She's going to present her paper on marginalization of English drama, factors responsible, and Mahesh Dattani's contribution in reviving the drama. Could you please share your screen?
Yes, ma'am, I'm trying. Just a second.
Dr. Parul, you have 10 minutes for presentations and 2 minutes for question and answer if there is any.
Okay, ma'am. I'm not able to share. Is my screen visible?
Yes, but we can't see the PPT yet.
Okay. I have opened PPT.
No, we can't see it yet. While sharing the screen, you can click on the option share entire screen, and then you can or you can press on the share tab.
Okay, I'll try once again. I can.
Yes, sure. If you want, you can proceed without the presentation.
Ma'am, just 1 second. Let me try just one more time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Your screen is visible, but your PPT is not visible.
Okay.
We can just see the Google Meet thing on your screen.
What to do? I'm not able to.
Okay, no problem. You have 9 minutes.
It is not going ahead actually. I am sharing. I have opened my presentation also.
Okay, we cannot see it. You can proceed without presentation, without your PPT. It's all right. You have 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Literature, as we know, being a mirror of society, is expected to depict the plight of margins and also the socio-cultural paradigms which bring about the process of marginalization. Coming to the literary genres in the Indian context, drama has been relegated to a marginalized status, and for that matter, Indian English drama itself stands marginalized further. So, not many practitioners of this genre treat the margins in their works, fearing to be labeled as non conventional. They are mostly content to ignore such individuals as a challenge to the heterosexual or hegemonic normativity which is central to the mainstream culture. It is felt by few critics that the detachment of the Indian playwrights from the classical traditions and myths is primarily responsible for the general neglect of drama. So this presentation attempts to study the reasons for the downgrading of Indian English drama, downgrading or marginalization of Indian English drama, and Mahesh Dattani's role in reviving it. So most margins would simply wish to be left alone to themselves, allowed to carry on with their way of life rather than wishing to change the society according to their ways. But they at least want their breathing space under the sun along with the mainstream rather than being pushed mercilessly to the corners and being scoffed at the center. So not many practitioners of this genre drama treat the margins in their works. They fear that they will be labeled as non-conventional. Where most writers shudders to take the plunge, there are a few daring stalwarts like Mahesh Dattani who enter the list to direct public attention to the dismal and gloomy lives of the margins. Uh, so there are, apart from Mahesh Dattani, there are others like Vijay Tendulkar also, who has produced great works showcasing the lives of the margins in his plays, originally written in Marathi and then translated it into English. So both these dramatists have explored the condition of the marginalized while keeping themselves detached from their works, standing true to Eliot's words. The progress of an artist is a continual self-sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. So if we look at the transition of drama, the end of the 19th century saw a transition of a different sort, with drama flourishing in vernaculars as well. The modern Indian drama had the melange of romance, tragedy, history, allegory, and melodrama. So Pillai, Tagore, Kailasam, and many other dramatists, they wrote plays in regional languages, chiefly in Bengali, Marathi, Telugu, and Odia. In the early 19th century, some plays were written in English. In 1871, Michael Madhusudan Dutt wrote his first play in English. The name of the play was Is This Civilization? Later, many plays were written in English by Sri Aurobindo Rabindranath Tagore. Then Iyer Harindranath Chattopadhyay and Bharti Sarabhai, they also write plays in English. However, these playwrights were not performance focused and did not write for the stage, with the exception of Tagore, whose plays were staged at Shanti Niketan. After India became independent, a number of playwrights emerged with a few writings in English, including Asif Karimbai, Pratap Sharma, and Guru Charan Das, whose plays got an international stage and were performed in Europe and USA. Asif Karimbai came to be regarded as a playwright with a difference who wrote for the stage and the theatre in English. And he has been eulogized as India's first authentic voice in theatre. The reason, now if we talk about the reasons for the marginalization of Indian English drama, so that can be largely attributed to three main factors. It is felt by few critics that the detachment of Indian playwrights from the classical traditions and myths is primarily responsible for the general neglect of drama. Moreover, performing a play on a stage is a cumbersome process which acts as a hurdle in its growth. Some critics also feel that English language has acted as a barrier to the growth of this genre. So critics like R.K. Dhawan, they believe that the first two reasons mentioned are largely responsible for the marginalization of the Indian drama in English. So he says that it is generally felt that Indian playwrights in English have failed to draw upon the rich and varied Indian dramatic traditions, as also to make creative use of the rich fund of Indian myth and Indian historical heritage. Yet another important reason given for stunted growth of Indian English drama in English is its unsuitability for production on the stage. So dramas were written, but they were not written for the purpose of staging production on the stage. Highlighting the significance of stage performance, another critic, Martin Stephen, he says that in some respect, reading a play is similar to being an archaeologist who tries to decide what a dinosaur looked like with only the evidence of its bones in front of him. The words of a play are its bare bones, and the crucial thing about it, but they solely needed to be brought to life by actors, scenery, and music if the full experience is to be realized. So he has highlighted very well that drama should be written for stage performance and why it is important. So in this regard, I would like to quote the playwright Girish Karnad's words also. He says that why should any young person write plays? It is a thankless job. First, you might never see your play staged. Second, you will never earn a livelihood from writing for the stage. And third, with the life that we had in the metros today, who can blame people if they don't come to the theater to watch plays? If a writer's choices are writing for stage, television, or films, only a great obsession for the stage would make him or her choose this stage. Now, Coming to the another barrier, which I have mentioned, is the language barrier. It is pertinent to quote the views of Dhawan, who differs in opinion about English language acting as a hurdle in the popularity of drama. He says that it is generally believed that we have very few actable plays, mainly because the dialogue between Indians may not sound convincing except when the characters are drawn from an urban, sophisticated milieu. He then refers to Naik, who gives the examples of Shakespeare and Shaw, who use English very convincingly for their different characters, and we don't question their authenticity. Devan rightly goes on to say, therefore, the Indian English playwrights need not have any queries about making their Indian characters speak in English. If they can take sufficient care to create convincing uh, in depicting life situation, perhaps the language would take care of itself. Nevertheless, it cannot be denied that the lack of English speaking audience is one of the major reasons for the lack of the growth of Indian drama in English, with only a very few dramatists in India like Mahesh Dattani who write originally in English. Emerging as a doyen of theatre, Dattani has the distinction of being the first Indian English playwright to be honored with the Sahitya Academy Award in 1998, and his the award citation reading was like that. The Tani work probes tangled attitudes in contemporary India towards communal differences, consumerism, and gender, a brilliant contribution to Indian drama in English. So, the Tani is one of the very few contemporary dramatists who have most successfully negotiated the language barrier. His copious literary output, animated by variegated themes voicing the contemporary issues with a unique boldness, unmatched literary prowess, and theatrical skills, have earned him worldwide acclaim through his contribution to Indian drama. His dramatic uh, work, comprising 16 plays, ranges from the stage plays to radio plays and films crafted with equal finesse. He enjoys the honor of having been commissioned by national and international bodies to write plays on social issues. His versatility as a master of dramatic craft is evident from the range of dramaturgical molds employed by him, also by the variety of characterization and concerns in his plays. He is also a proficient producer and director of plays. His ownership of the theatre company Playpen adds cubits to his stature as the practicing dramatist in the country. Drama for whom is not just bread and butter, but is very life and soul. Even Mahesh Dattani, he had to face hostility at the hands of literary figures who regard drama as an inferior genre. But Dattani is not to be cowed down by such antagonists. He talks of...
Mr. Parul,
Yes.
please conclude. You have 1 minute left.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah. So regarding Indian drama, M.K. Nayak and Shamla A. Narayan say that it is a Cinderella still waiting for her prince, yet to establish itself as a viable genre. However, with the advent of such doyens of theatre as Mahesh Dattani and Vijay Tendulkar, one may safely add that Indian drama has at last found its Prince Charming in the form of these dedicated dramatists whose works are there to stay for good, inspiring and sensitizing the discerning generations for all times to come. So both these playwrights, in their own creative signature styles, persuade the readers to rethink over the self-created arbitrary ideas according to which man expects everyone to behave within the prescribed modes of existence. So the present study is made with the hope that it may impel some sensitive minds to redefine the set paradigms of society, which do not allow the margins to lead a meaningful and progressive life without thwarting their desires, passions, dreams, and their very urge to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parul, for finishing on time. Do we have any question from audience? Do we have any questions for Dr. Parul? Congratulations, Dr. Parul. We are
Thank
very
you.
pleased to hear your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Next presenter with us is Mr. Vivek Kumar. Vivek Kumar, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
Sure. Vivek Kumar is going to present on Lost Identities, a study of Jhumpa Lahiri's novel Namesake. He's enrolled in the Department of English and Foreign Languages, MD University, Rohtak, Haryana. Mr. Vivek, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, ma'am.
Your screen is visible, but we can't see your presentation yet.
I am trying to present.
I think you have shared your screen. Now you have to open your presentation. We can see your screen. You have to open your presentation now. Are you
Okay,
going to
ma'am.
read the paper? You don't have any PPT prepared?
Ma'am, I have my research paper
Sure.
in my
Okay.
phone.
You can proceed. You have 10 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. I am Vivek Kumar, research scholar from MD University Rohtak, which is a state recognized university. So my my paper's title is Lost Identities: A Study of Jhumpa Lahiri's novel Namesake. So I am going to start my paper from the abstract. The priority of this paper lies in the whole effort to comprehend the conflict between the Indian diaspora and losing their identity in their society. In this novel, Asima, as a child of Bengal, corresponds to the proof of an immigrant where the ongoing quest of identity crisis arises. She has been sandwiched between the birth of her country and has embraced the doctrines of the foreign country. The initial proposal of this paper is to put in a nutshell the endless difficulty faced by the second generation as to protest against their identity with their children, clashing realities, and their culture. The paper shows how the parents talk about the shared account in the navel, and the children are stressed in binding contracts of deep depression. The novel expresses the struggles and difficulties of a Bengal couple who immigrate to the United States to form a life beyond everything they are habituated to. The story forms as Asoka and Asima leave Calcutta and settle in the Central Square in Cambridge. Through a sequence of errors, their son's nickname Gogol becomes his authorized name, an event that will shape many facets of his life in years to come. Now we can start to understand the concept of identity. So, identity contains the many associations people develop, such as their identity as a kid, companion, partner, and parent. It involves exterior characteristics over which a person has little or no control, such as height, race, socioeconomic class. Identity has encompasses political opinions, moral attitudes, and religious sentiments, all of which are the choices one makes daily. Identity plays a vital role in delegating individuals to exercise their rights and responsibilities fairly and equitably in contemporary society. It is crucial for social, economic, and digital inclusion. It supplies access to fundamental human rights such as healthcare, pensions, social benefits, and the ability to express our right to vote. However, to assess those rights, one needs to prove who they are. Diasporic literature has been playing an influential role in depicting the culture and history of nations and disclosing the reality about people in diaspora. According to Jasbir Naik, language and cultures are transformed as they contact other languages and cultures. Diasporic writing introduced questions regarding the definitions of home and nation. The word diaspora is derived from the Greek word diasperian, which means to separate or disperse. The ancient Greek used diasporian to point to people of a predominant position who immigrated to a new region with the aim of colonization, to change the land into an empire. In the ancient era, a considerable number of Indians immigrated to the Far East Asia to promote Buddhism. However, in modern times, the Indian diaspora describes the people who emigrated from the land of India. This study evaluates the term diaspora and its functions and role in the contemporary world. There, the cases as multiculturalism, identity, and belongingness are observed among the Indian diasporas. The novel depicts the struggles and difficulties of a Bengal couple who enter the United States to form a life beyond everything they are habituated to. The story starts as Ashok and Asima leave Calcutta and settle in Central Square in Cambridge. The namesake points to the Ganguly family who immigrated to the United States from Calcutta and their children Gogol and Sonia grown in the USA. It begins in 1968 with Asima Ganguly, a Bengali woman who has newly moved to Cambridge with her new husband. So our names are given by our parents, which shapes our identity and shape senses of belonging. The entire novel is about Gogol's name and how his identity is shaped by the name he has given as a child. Many critics have pointed out the importance of the names in shaping our identity. So we can take a quotations from the text from the novel namesake. For ancient peoples, all problem nouns were initially meaningful. The name showed a road and could thus have a bearing on the child's fate. Hence, the care dedicated to its choice is understandable. There was nothing childish or abused among this as long as the name held a meaning inherent to it, since each person's name was associated with the future and could influence his fate. The name serves not only to identify an individual, it also confers existence. So Gogol cannot shape his identity because of his name and because he is ripped apart between the two cultures. The culture in which he is raised as a child at home and the very different one surrounding him outside home leaves his mind confused. He falls in love with the Maxine, the total opposite of her parents. Gogol marries an Indian girl, Mosmi, because she is also torn apart between the two cultures, and he can win his mother's support for the marriage. But finally, he has to divorce the girl. For Gogol's sister, Sonia, everything is also distant. She has successfully come to terms with the American culture. Being born after Gogol, her parents did not face any of their difficulties when Gogol was born. They chose her name before she was born because now they know that once they utter a name to the people at the hospital, their child will be called by that name. Asima's homesickness is a significant source of unhappiness. Besides cooking and cleaning and taking care of their children, she has nothing to do at home. She has no friends. Moreover, she does not even want to raise her baby in the country. She feels distant and does not fit in America. Asima suffered from the isolated from the first day of her journey to America until the end after her husband's death. So Gogol in particular is ripped between two cultures, the Indian customs of his parents and the mainstream American culture in which he grows up. His struggle is the same as that of his sister Sonia goes through and his wife Mohsin. It is also connected to the struggle his parents experience as immigrants. Each character faces a choice. Should I embody American culture? If so, how much? Will I be betraying my roots if I do? So is the title also significance a lot of things. As the title signify, the namesake is novel of identities. Gogol plans to change his name to Nikhil before departing home for college, revealing his desire to take possession of his own identity. The name Gogol, which Nikhil finds is so unpleasant, is it?
Mr. Vivek,
Yes, ma'am.
you have 1 minute left.
Okay, okay, ma'am. So Nikhil finds so unpleasant it is directed outcome of the internal identity disorder at his birth when he later sent from India that contained the true name was lost in the mail. Gogol is also a name that bears deep meaning for Ashoki since it was a textbook of short stories by Gogol, the Russian writer that saves his life in a fatal train crash. But this meaning is not conveyed to Gogol during his childhood. So they feels a lot of struggles which are faced by the immigrants. Throughout the novel namesake, we find that the main character of the novel struggles with his cultural identity because he is immigrant. Ashok is connected to his Bengali tradition, but when he settled in the United States, he started compromising with his Bengali roots and trying to fit into American society. So I am going to conclude my lesson. In the novel namesake, Lahiri analyzes the jerk between the two words, Indian word and the American word. That exploration is based partly on her experiences growing up in America as a child of Indian immigrants. Her fictional encounters is Gogol Ganguly. Throughout the novel, he comes of age and comes to terms his complicated multicultural identity. The namesake highlights the cultural problems of immigrant families. Jhumpa Lahiri reveals their struggle to safeguard the traditions with precision. This division between the two civilizations seems to have shattered Gogol's identity. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vivek. Do we have any questions from audience? So Vivek, are you a PhD scholar or MPhil scholar?
Ma'am, I am a PhD scholar.
Okay. And is this your first time that you're giving presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I would just like to suggest you a few things. Like you just shared. Firstly, you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay, ma'am.
Firstly, I would like to congratulate you because it was your first presentation.
Okay, thank you so
Secondly,
much, ma'am.
some suggestions for you. So whenever you present a paper, you generally highlight the key points of your paper. All right. You don't read the paper generally. You don't read the full paper. All right. Sometimes you can, but you don't read. You highlight the key points, key aspects of your findings, your arguments, and all. All right. And secondly, when you are presenting your screen, you don't present your paper, but you make a PPT, or you also highlight some points. Okay.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
that you can include for your next presentation. All the best.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for your suggestions.
So now we have next presenter. Uh, I can't pronounce your name. Can you please tell me your name?
It's Jerome. Jerome.
Okay, it's S. Jerome. All right.
Yeah.
So S. Jerome, could you please share your screen?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
S. Jerome is a research scholar in the Chris University, Bangalore, and he's going to present on whether the author's imagination approximates to the real, a study of Paulo Coelho's The Spy. So you can start. You have 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm very happy to be presenting my research findings with you. What I've tried to problematize here in this paper is, in this presentation, first and foremost, is how much does your imagination have a play in um, comprehending reality as it is? So we're all aware of the trade-off between history as well as poetry, right from Aristotle, who tries to say about how poetry brings out things as they ought to be, whereas history is mostly a science and it records things as it's felt. And we also have discourses down the ages which talk about what exactly constitutes reality, or how do we best understand or comprehend reality. So I thought The Spy gives a very good example of how an author's imagination, when properly guided, can actually approximate to the real. Now, as we all know, that new historicism developed in the academia in 1990s, in the 1990s, primarily in America, whose major proponent was Stephen Greenblatt, who actually wanted to properly understand the meanings, etc., of literary texts, which actually did not clearly conflict with, a proper understanding. In the sense, he talks about in his essays about how Dover probably misrepresented his reading of how Richard II was understood during its staging in Elizabethan England. So The Spy is a novel about a person who was a Dutch, who was married to an officer in Indonesia, who had a troubled marriage. She was sort of I don't know, she had a grandiose personality. She did not feel contented with the marriage with her husband. She moves to France in a different persona. She changes. She has a makeover of herself. She calls herself Mata Hari and then performs dances. She becomes instantaneously famous. She performs on all the luxurious hotel stages, and so she has a role, let's say, the kind of role that she wanted as a young child. So maybe you could employ some sort of psychoanalysis into her character to exactly maybe figure out what exactly drove her to the kind of person she became. Anyways, during the time that she was famous, during the early 1900s, she was very, very famous, and she performed in France. So Coelho is interested in Mata Hari because Coelho had heard about her, and Mata Hari was famous even in the circles that Coelho visited and among the circles of his friends. So what Coelho does is not say the story as it is, as it were a biography, but he uses his imagination. And what I'm trying to contend through this paper is my idea that he actually has a new historicist sort of practice, because he actually employs his understanding of a lot of historical details about Mata Hari, but he doesn't use it exactly as it is, but he uses his imagination to correspond and complement that. And then finally, what he comes up with is a sort of an inverse project to the traditional new historicist critical practice. We know that the traditional new historicist critical practice usually finds the critical understandings of texts from previous eras to have been misrepresented or misinterpreted, and they try to focus on the non-literary contemporary writings, which came up during the period the play or whatever it is, the work of art was brought out, to properly understand what exactly could have been the response, or at least try to pinpoint it more correctly. So what exactly does The Spy bring? How is it a good paradigm for a new historicist reading, although I call it an inverse new historicist reading, is the following. I mean, whatever you see on screen. So this lady was very complicated in the sense that people found it very difficult to comprehend her, as also perhaps she herself felt about herself, her own personality. So she, not really an identity crisis like maybe the previous presenter, I forget his name, he was trying to talk about the identity crisis in Jhumpa Lahiri's novel, but maybe in a slightly different way, because the world that she was a part of probably did not understand her, which is what I've given as my first sentence in the presentation, where Coelho says about Hari, through her words, as it were, in the novel, "I am a woman who was born at the wrong time." Now, like you see in the quote by Nicholas Barber, she has been the subject of 250 biographies and novels just weeks after her death. It shows how popular she was during her time. And also, she was not only popular, all of the accounts of her life sort of conflicted each other. So you can find in the final quote, the fourth quote, which is a quote from her biography by Pat Shipman, which is a comprehensive one, which came out rather recently. She says, reporters were anxious to interview her, and she told them varied and clever stories of her past, none of which corresponded closely with the truth. So she actually spun stories around herself. So her life was itself a sort of a literature which was very fictional. So much that, okay, there's this other one. The first quote tells you about what Diane Samuel, who also wrote a fiction, see how the title is, The True Life Fiction of Mata Hari. So what she says is, for years, Mata Hari has been seen as a femme fatale and a dangerous spy, but the truth behind this remarkable woman is a good deal more complex. So what I try to say is, Coelho, through his imagination, tries to create a sympathetic understanding of her personality, because Coelho feels that she was born at the wrong time. The people around her did not probably understand her very well, which is how she met her fate. The fate she met with was to be finally executed by the French squad for having spied against France, which was sort of her, adopted country. And so Coelho's sympathetic understanding of her personality might not be, strictly speaking, a new historicist practice, because new historicist practice, I think, tends to be neutral. For example, Catherine Gallagher is said to have been said to have told that I'm basically neutral politically. But Coelho is not neutral, at least politically. If is something I need to probably mention as a maybe a reservation in going full speed with my analysis. But anyways, he tries to create a sympathetic understanding precisely because he feels that the view of her personality has been greatly skewed historically. What I have on screen before you is what Coelho says about the novel itself. About 2 months ago, it's an after novel, after reception sort of interview that he gave, where he says, about 2 months ago, a museum in the Netherlands made public some new letters of Mata Hari, which she wrote in Holland before she went to Java. One reviewer said that it was as if I had channeled her. So Coelho takes great pride in thinking that maybe he got the philosophy of Mata Hari right, and perhaps
Please,
realism is, yeah.
Please conclude.
Yeah. How much more time do I have?
Just 1 minute.
Okay. Okay. So Coelho, like I said, takes great pride, and although this is a work of fiction as claimed by the publishers of The Spy, it uses a great deal of historical information, but the situations, incidents, and dialogues are also fictional. But the fact of the matter is, maybe Paulo Coelho got the life of Mata Hari correctly, and even more correctly if you compare it with others, or maybe even some of her biographers. It's pretty much the same thing. Let me come to, since it's just 1 minute before I have to wind up. Imagination approximates to the real in certain cases. If you follow certain guidelines which actually guide you the right way, like New Historicism claims to have a better idea of the reception of literature because it has a better practice and a better methodology, it's actually maybe true that a good poetic imagination can actually approximate to the real when it comes to understanding the philosophy, or even maybe some of the social concerns of a particular time. How this happens, let's read Traeger and maybe find out. Biography is only as reliable as its sources. It can be made up from letters and friends' reminiscences, which are less than objective. For this reason, fictional biography may be more honest. with this, I'd like to conclude by saying that maybe something is there about literature which is more than just scientific understanding, or maybe our scientific understanding need not necessarily always approximate to the real as we'd like to think, which I think stays an enigma, and I'd like to call it and let it remain an enigma. And I'd like to conclude by asking if you have any questions. And I'm really glad that the conference presenters, I mean, the managers are giving good feedback, and the conference is running on time. So thank you so much for the conference and for allowing me to take part in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, S. Jerome. It was a wonderful presentation, and thanks for your feedback regarding the conference.
Okay.